So I just wanted to kind of start our journey, just as we're going through these slides in terms of the kind of mechanics of things. I've tried to put a little bit of a timeline at the bottom of each slide so you can kind of follow where we are in the journey. I will jump about a little bit, so apologies for that. Hopefully you'll be able to stick with me. As I say, just trying to tell the overall story here. So starting our journey and some reflection on the early stages of the programme, 2016. We're very much forming options for the current census, largely based on the lessons learned from 2011 census, looking at our commercial strategies, what legislation we'd have to pass through Parliament, and at this early stage, the PMO function and team was created. So we knew at this early stage that we go with a primarily online census, and that was essentially what digital meant to us at the time. But then moving into 2017, we got emerging advice from Audit Scotland through their principles for a digital future publication, and also the forming of the Scottish Government's Digital Assurance Office. So guidance was changing to reflect new digital approaches, and the Digital First or Digital Scotland Service standard being introduced in Scotland as well. So trying to understand what that meant for us beyond just having an online solution. What does actual digital programme delivery mean for us? As we continue to kind of learn more about that, we recognise as we progress through to 2018 that the relatively simple governance structure that we had in place at the time wasn't really going to be appropriate, and certainly wasn't necessarily aligned with a digital approach, and maybe not appropriate for what we had to deliver in the next phase of the programme, which essentially was in 2019 to head into a big dress rehearsal of the census operation itself. So what we did at the tail end of 2018, we initiated an independent assurance review, the Scottish Government Gateway Review, to assess the existing programme governance, looking at our delivery model and our assurance arrangements. So that review came back and delivered a red rating for us actually at that time, and we got a wide range of recommendations around decision making, information flows, various roles and responsibilities that were on the programme, what we needed to move to, etc. So a bit of a difficult report card in those early days for us, but equally not necessarily unexpected at that time. But I think pretty crucial that we understood what needed to change, and importantly to have that kind of independent voice to confirm this for us. So my own journey started in May 2019. I wasn't part of the programme at the very beginning. I had worked on previous censuses in various roles, led the governance arrangements for the 2011 census, but moved off to work in NRS corporate governance and do other things. But I was asked to come back into the programme in May 2019 to take over the PMO function and help to implement some of those recommendations that Gateway Review had given us. So in terms of a little bit of discovery at the beginning, there was basically little or no direct PMO experience in the team. It was best efforts from the staff who were actually there, but some obvious skills and capability issues through a lack of experience on working on a big kind of digital programme like the census. But the PMO, as I've said on screen there, it's essentially a PSO, a support office, rather than a management office. It was, really admin support with no real clear sense of purpose I found at the time. And there were also some significant gaps in the governance controls, as the Gateway Review had identified as well. And there was something also about the PMO having a kind of, or lacking a focused connection with the programme teams and the delivery teams on the programme. So that's kind of what, after discussing and meeting with a few people on the team, that's the kind of sense I had of things in the early days. In terms of action, I tried to set a vision for a more strategic PMO and developed a transition plan to try and help us get there. Made some headway against that in the early days, but found it difficult as well to move at the pace that the programme needed us to move at, with that kind of combination of the inexperienced team members and the actual delivery teams themselves being really focused on the hard deadlines for that 2019 census rehearsal. So governance was pretty much second in their priorities, as you can imagine. And that's kind of part of the prevailing culture on the programme around about that time, and the teams working in silos and that sort of thing as well, just looking at what they had to deliver. So in terms of reflection, yeah, difficult to make headway at times faced against a programme moving in that type of direction. Definitely insufficient time for us to upscale the PMO. the PMO, not upscale, at the pace required by the programme, and a kind of just a reflection that we needed some more direct experience, and we needed it fairly quickly. So as this was progressing, we had a follow-up external review from that initial gateway review to look at how far we'd come in progress against those recommendations. So as you can see on screen here, with an amber red kind of delivery confidence rating, but importantly, within the recommendations that they made, further recommendations to improve our governance at the time, there was one direct one about ejecting that professional PPM skills and resources and establishing an enduring PMO service for NRS. So very much chimed with my own thoughts at the time, so it's actually quite helpful to have that coming through from the external assurance provider. So at that point in time then, we decided that we needed to form a new team. So we worked in partnership with Deloitte colleagues and pulled together a kind of a new team to undertake a root and branch review basically across all of our governance arrangements on the programme. So a very intense period to try and to do all that. What we ended up doing was kind of creating a brand new PMO handbook. So all the processes, controls, roles and responsibilities, governance structure, the whole shebang, all into one place for everyone, and to kind of relaunch the PMO as a service and the program management kind of function across the piece out back into the delivery teams. So roll forward into February of 2020, again, another kind of assurance follow-up, and this will be a recurring theme as you'll understand as I go through these slides, but a further assurance follow-up confirmed that all the governance recommendations had been implemented, so that was good, and the programme had now recovered from that initial red rating in 2018 to an amber status. So at this point in time, a kind of key chapter in the programme story ending on an up, if you like, with that kind of significant prolonged efforts really to try and position the programme to deliver a successful census in 2021. So a bit of recovery there, but an emerging good picture hopefully. So we started 2020 with the full intention of carrying out a census in 2021, and see on the screen there, left-hand side, some initial priorities for the year ahead, which included the launch of that PMO handbook. But then, as we're all aware, COVID struck just at the kind of the wrong time for us, having just come out of that kind of period of recovery. So that led to a full and in-depth kind of appraisal of the impact that COVID would have on the census, and we determined that impact was substantial and self-assessed the programme as red against being able to deliver a census in 2021 to the existing design that we had at the time. So we initiated another external review into the approach we took to go about that options assessment, and they found our approach to that options assessment to be sound. So that was quite good. PMO itself played a coordinating role in both the options appraisal and the external assurance process that was related to it. And then subsequently that year, ministers took a decision in July to delay the census by 1 year into 2022. Excuse me, jump one ahead. There we go. So our revised priorities then see us very much in the midst of a major replanning exercise at that time to plan for March 2022 instead of March 2021. So we undertook a lot of hard work between July and November that year to develop a kind of revised delivery plan, taking into account the impact on our resources, our suppliers, costs, the assumptions that we had, the risks that we had, etc. So another kind of full review and resetting of the programme, and PMO within that coordinated across a number of activities, including a full resource review, where we looked at every post across the full programme life cycle and the impact of this decision on those, and at the same time rolling out the PMO handbook and making sure people understood what those new controls, etc. were. So fast forward to the end of that year, a revised plan approved in December, and against which we undertook a further external assurance review, and that then gave us an amber confidence rating against delivering the census in 2022 based on that revised plan. So that's kind of a little bit of a background to big events that could affect the service. But getting back to the kind of PMO service and the resetting of what we would deliver into the programme, you can kind of see the 6 kind of main areas on screen there that were all reflected in the PMO handbook. So 6 key elements. For each element, the handbook provided detailed guidance on how each of these things would work, what the scope of it was, and the roles and responsibilities of the PMO and for the programme staff as well. So we rolled it all out to all the programme staff in a kind of waved approach across April 2020, at the same time as the work was starting to initiate around the options assessment for delaying the census by a year. Feedback was actually really positive at that time, and I think the programme really welcomed it. They were looking for it, so it was great to get that positive feedback.